Hey friends, I'm Victoria. Welcome to Fortuna Cucina. Welcome to my kitchen. And today we're going to be talking about butter and buttermilk biscuits. How this whole topic came about was because I used to purchase Kerrygold butter. Now, Kerrygold recently came under fire because not the butter itself, but their packaging has PEG forever chemicals that ended up getting into the butter. Now, I don't know about you, but one of the reasons why I buy higher end products like Kerrygold is so I don't have the junky chemicals in it. And they end up with junky chemicals in them anyway. So that led me to down a path of thinking about butter, thinking about things that we take for granted every day, like mayo. We want to look at the back of your mayo jar to see how many chemicals are in there. It's a lot. We can be making things at home from scratch that take just a little bit of time, but taste fantastic. Also, another reason why I'm really passionate about helping people cook from scratch is because in today's economic landscape, things are expensive, right? So I worked in finance for most of my adult life, and what I have found is that two things. One, I can't turn my business brain off, but two, as we're going forth into these interesting economic times, I continue to track the price and the unit price specifically of goods that I purchase. And the price isn't going down, folks. So we need to make sure that we can protect ourselves from whatever hazards are coming our way. So that means maybe you cook at home instead of eating out, because eating out is expensive anyway. Maybe you don't buy some of those convenience foods that you've been purchasing in the past, like a whole chicken from Costco. And maybe you buy an organic chicken and you cook one at home. So we can kind of tweak some of the things that we're doing. And yes, it does take a little bit more effort, but I feel like the quality is way worth it. And you know what you're getting. So that's one of the reasons why I love cooking from scratch. The food is better, you know what's in it. If you have any digestive things or any sensitivities or allergies, you don't have to worry about any of that. So, and again, with inflation, food shortages, the economy, it's important to keep your skills up in case you need them. So again, I decided that butter was one of those things that, what if there's no butter on the shelf? What if butter is really expensive? How can I make my own butter? So butter is actually one of the easier things to make. And I'll tell you why, because we're gonna let our machinery in the kitchen do the work for us. All you need for butter is actually heavy cream. Now, again, I went down a rabbit hole, and here's something that's interesting. So I was looking for organic heavy cream, and it's really hard to find organic heavy cream with no fillers or gums or preservatives. And so I ended up finding a dairy through Azure Standard. Their price was really astronomical, but the quality was amazing. And again, this is kind of something that is a little bit of an experiment for me. And whether or not I continue to make homemade butter, who knows? But just so you know, if you're embarking on this journey as well, you need to read the label, even on something as, simple as heavy cream, to see what's in there. So we're gonna be taking our heavy cream and we're gonna use our KitchenAid mixer. Now you can mix it by hand if you want, big guns, that's cool too. But I'm gonna let my KitchenAid mixer do the mixing for me because it's just way easier. So turn on your KitchenAid mixer, do something else. Go, pick up around your kitchen, whatever, but you need to keep an eye on it. So, but that's it. What ends up happening is the butter will separate from the buttermilk, and you'll kind of hear it sloshing around, and that's the time to stop your mixer. So it's really that simple. It's not difficult. It just takes a little bit of time to make your own butter. So that's what we're gonna do today. I think the tastiest part is part two, where we're making biscuits. And I have to tell you guys, I messed up. So I was making biscuits one night and I had like a half a quart, 3/4 of a quart of buttermilk in my fridge, and somehow like I had a brain fart and I was thinking that I was making pie crust or something like that, and I used ice cold water instead of buttermilk. This gave me an opportunity to check and see how the biscuits would taste. And let me tell you, they're not as good as if you use buttermilk. So that's an integral ingredient. So even if you're like, Victoria, this from scratch thing is nice, but I'm going to go buy my buttermilk. You do you, boo. That's cool. No judgment here. But buttermilk is an integral ingredient. But one thing I will say is I did not throw away those hard biscuits. They were just really compressed. They never did fluff up. And I'm not going to throw them away. And what I'll end up doing is probably chopping up those frozen biscuits, and I can use them for something else. I can use them for, like, I don't know, making a cobbler, or that's the only thing I can think of right now is making a cobbler. So if you have a little flub up like me, no worries. You can still use that for something else. And I don't know, you may find that it's fantastic or it is not, but that's okay. I mean, we're trying new things here. So that's pretty much it. The one thing I will mention is when you have your buttermilk and you've made your biscuits, if you have any extra, you can get really creative. Okay, so I started dehydrating the rest of the buttermilk and making my own buttermilk powder. The reason I wanted to do this was to have buttermilk, to have ranch powder and have my own ranch dressing on hand. My child loves Hidden Valley Ranch. Again, crap ton of chemicals and things like that in there. And I just really don't like want to encourage that. So we recently made our own spicy chicken fingers, which he loves the spicy ones, and ranch dressing. And let me tell you, he loved it. He thought it was amazing. So that's something that you can do too. Dehydrate the buttermilk. You literally put it on a cookie sheet, put some parchment paper down first, like pour the buttermilk on a cookie sheet, have it at the lowest setting that your oven will go. The lowest that mine will go is 175. So, and then you just leave it in there until it's dry, and then use your immersion blender to blend it up. And you can use that buttermilk to make your own ranch powder or ranch dressing, and you can have it on hand and it's shelf stable. So that's super cool too. So let's do this. Again, the only thing you need from the store is heavy whipping cream and a little bit of time. We're gonna be making the butter first, and that's gonna take a couple minutes, probably 10 minutes at most, to get the butter separated from the buttermilk. It's gonna take a couple minutes. We're gonna wash our butter. I know this sounds weird, stick with me. And then we're gonna put everything in the freezer. And then the next day is when we make our biscuits, because our butter has to be cold. So tell me in the comments, is this something you would ever do? Are you someone who would be like, how do you make butter? How do you make whatever? Or is this something that until it is not available, you will be purchasing butter in the store? Comment below. I know this seems like a lot of work, but the biscuits are worth it to me. Again, if you don't want to make your own butter, that's cool. It's cool. Just go get some buttermilk at the store. All right, friends, let's get started with the butter. Okay, so now we're going to take our butter out of our KitchenAid. We're gonna need a few things for this. We're gonna need to wash the butter, and what I mean by wash the butter is we wanna rinse it until it looks clear. So if we're rinsing it and there's still some white, that means there's still buttermilk with the butter, and we don't want any of that buttermilk. We're gonna save that and use it separately. But see how I'm able to take this out and just start taking off clumps of butter. I like to use, this is a tea towel, and I have this is a strainer, and then I have some ice in this bowl. We're gonna get to that in a minute. But first we need to take all of the butter out of this beater here. Whisk, I guess is what it is. Thing. So let me know what you feel about cooking from scratch. Are you one of those people that's like, I want to do it, but it is just too much work? Or do you love the product of it, but time is an issue? I was just having a conversation with my husband the other day, and he was like, I love that we've been cooking really good food at home from scratch. And he goes, but it takes so much time. The answer is yes, it takes a lot of time. So kind of like taking all the butter off of this whisk is taking a little bit of time. The one thing that I've noticed though, since I started consistently cooking from scratch, is that the food tastes so much better. And tell me, like, comment and let me know if you feel the same way, that the food just tastes so much better. You know, you've taken time to put some love into it. And one thing that concerns me, oh, and there's still quite a bit of butter in the bowl here, so we want to make sure we get all that out, and then we're going to reserve what's left. Oh, that's interesting. There's a lot more butter in here than there was the last batch. I think it just depends upon the brand. That brand that I picked up at Azure Standard with my Azure Standard order today, it said it's at least 40% milk fat. And so I'm assuming that means that I'll have a lot of butter. Okay. I'm just gonna gather this up, and now I'm gonna get rid of this guy. We're just gonna dunk it in the water. And I like to use a tea towel. Like, honestly, you don't have to. You can just do this by hand if you want. But it keeps everything together, so I think that's easy. And we're just gonna rinse it. And I don't know if you can see, like, look at how cloudy that water is. It was clear just a second ago. So I heard someone say, like, do this until all the water is clear. Well, I think that, like, I've done that before, and it's been like 2 or 3 goes with the cold water. I can massage my butter as I go too. Oh, found another little piece. I save every little piece of butter that I come across because, of course, it took a while to make it. Okay. So we're just going to continue rinsing until when you squeeze the buttermilk, do you see how that's a white liquidy? Once it's clear, that means that it's rinsed all the way. So we have a little bit to go. I'll probably change out this water at least once. If I wanted this to be really pretty, I would probably take part of this stick and like fill in some of the gaps here. The butter's already in there pretty good, so I'm not even gonna bother. But we're just gonna pop the lid on. You actually don't even need this lid. Just put it in the freezer. And then you can take the sticks out. You can remove them from the mold. And then I like to store the sticks in, I wrap them in some parchment paper and just keep them in a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. So that is it for the butter phase. In order to make biscuits, we need this butter to be really chilled. So we're gonna do the biscuits tomorrow. Okay, I just have a quart-sized jar here and a funnel to make it easier. And we're just gonna pour this into here. That's interesting, that's about a pint. That's a little bit less than I got last time. So I got about a pint of buttermilk from this. I got a little bit more butter than I did last time, which is cool. And every time is different. So, I mean, you're making things from scratch. It's going to be, you know, different a little bit each time. But I'm just gonna put a lid on this and put this in the fridge. What I like to do is put a date on here. I'll just take like a dry erase pen like that and write the date and what it is. Because if you're like me, you could be like, what is this? Like, who did this? Where is it in my fridge? And forget that you had buttermilk in there. So I think it's important to date it. And we're gonna be getting going on our biscuits. So we're gonna be using part of our butter and part of our buttermilk. So everything gets used in this recipe. All right, stay tuned. On to biscuits. Hey friends, welcome back to Butterpalooza. So I just got my sticks of butter out of the freezer. Now it's the next day from when I made the butter and they're frozen, but it's stinking hot in here, so they're starting to melt. What I do is I just wrap them up with some parchment paper like a Tootsie Roll and put the date on it. And we're gonna be using this butter to make buttermilk biscuits. So let's talk about your buttermilk for a second. Okay, listen, Linda. If we're cooking from scratch, does it take longer? Yes. However, the product is generally better. Do you need to make your own butter and buttermilk to make amazing biscuits? No. I'm just doing this because I am apparently OCD or something about buttermilk. And I want to show you how we can do this because it's good to know how we can do these things. I'm all about self-sufficiency. I'm all about teaching myself how, if I in a pinch needed to do something, how could I do it? So what we're left after making the butter is our sticks of butter, which I actually think I need to put back in the freezer, and our buttermilk. And we're going to be making biscuits. If you don't use all of your buttermilk, that's fine. You can use this for another project. And by the way, I'm not gonna buttermilk shame you. If you went to the store and got buttermilk, mazel tov, whatever. We're making biscuits today regardless. And let me show you what I do with my biscuits. Okay, I am a fan of doing something and like prepping, that's not the right term here, but making sure that I have things done so that my life is easier later. So I have, these are frozen biscuits. Ooh, you can see the frost come off of it. I don't know if you can see it because it's freaking hot in here. So I just turned on the AC, so hopefully that'll kick in soon. So I just use like one of these little bags and I freeze the biscuits. Here's what I'll tell you about freezing. What I will tell you about freezing the biscuits is this. So it's really helpful to have some that are already frozen. It's kind of like a tube of the Pillsbury biscuits or whatever. It's one less thing that you have to do. And the biscuits are so much better when they're made fresh. And sorry, I feel like I have a hair. You ever get that? The biscuits are so much better made fresh that day that what I started doing is putting them in the freezer. Now, the one thing I will say, this is the one caveat. If you take the biscuits from the freezer and put them in the oven, they will be much flatter than if you let them come up to room temperature. So if you know you want to have biscuits in the morning for breakfast, maybe you take some out, put them in a Ziploc bag in your fridge and let them defrost in the bag. Or maybe you take them out in the morning and let them come up to room temperature in a couple hours. This is just what I've noticed, because I thought to myself, what if I'm really lazy and just take one, pop it in there? What if I wait 20 minutes? What is that like? I've noticed there's a difference in the rise of the biscuits. So if you haven't made biscuits before, here's the deal. We're gonna use some of our regular ingredients that we would use for any other type of pastry. So I'm just looking at my recipe. So we have 4 cups of flour, baking soda, baking powder, salt, 3/4 cup butter, which is about 1.5 sticks, and 1 to 2 cups of buttermilk. If you've made a pie crust before, which is just like 4 ingredients, it's flour, salt, ice cold water, and butter. And essentially you're mixing all of those together. This is a very similar type of deal in that we're gonna want our butter really cold, and this is frozen from the freezer. I'm gonna chop this up and put it to the side. I'm gonna mix all of my dry ingredients first, and then I'm gonna cut in the butter. We're gonna end up using our buttermilk like we would water if we're making a pie crust. So we're looking for that doughy consistency. Everything's gonna stick together. Now, here's the one thing you need to know about biscuits. Biscuits are flaky, and biscuits have all those layers that we love because you folded the dang dough, okay? If you don't fold the dough, you don't get the layers and you don't get the flakiness, and then it's kind of, okay? It's not the same. So we are gonna want to mix our dough first. We're gonna chill it, let that get all happy. And I actually cut mine into 2, so it's a little bit easier to deal with. And then I'm gonna fold it. Make sure you fold it at least 3 times. I say 5 or 6 because the more layers, the better when we're talking about a biscuit. Now you can use something even like, I don't have biscuit cutters, okay? We don't have that kind of precious space in my kitchen. You can use something like this, like a jar lid. I also have little pastry cutters that are all different sizes, and that's what I use for everything. I use it for cookies, I use it for biscuits, anything like that. So I'll be picking a size, and they're always different. I'm a weirdo, I don't know. I never keep track of what the size is for the biscuits. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna be using to cut the biscuits themselves. We are going to then, I have a friend today, we are then going to bake a couple because they are the best, fresh, and then we're gonna freeze the rest. If you don't like the idea of freezing your biscuits, then just make them fresh, or freeze the dough and then do the whole folding thing and then bake them, okay? So there's a lot of latitude here. Even if you're watching this video and you're like, Victoria, I'm never gonna make biscuits from scratch. Okay, well, consider your life skills. Consider how many skills that you have now. What if there is a shortage of flour? What if there is a shortage of butter? Like, do you know how to make, now you know how to make your own butter and what you could do with buttermilk. So I pose these questions to you and want you to be prepared for what might possibly happen in the future, because I don't know, you don't know, I don't know, it could be the Thunderdome in 5 years. I think about these things all the time. So we're gonna get on with making our biscuits, and I'm gonna make sure I at least make 3 fresh today for my husband and my son and myself. And yeah, let me know below if you're gonna be freezing them, if you're gonna be making them fresh and gobbling each one up. I feel you on that. Or maybe you're gonna give some to a friend. This is a perfect actual side dish. And if you're going to be making soup and biscuits, dang, yes. Homemade soup and homemade biscuits, that would be amazing. And imagine if you brought that to a sick friend. Like, okay, superstar, you're fantastic. So let's get to it. Let's make our biscuits. Let's roll. Okay, so our dough's been chilling and I just separated it into two. We're gonna be using one section at a time. We don't want the butter to totally melt in our hands, so I'm gonna take just one half and be working one half at a time. And you'll see when I put my camera down here, but I kind of make like a little bed for my biscuit dough. I just spread some flour out, and as you can tell, I need to put some more flour in my jar, so I'm hoping that it won't require a whole lot of extra flour. But we're gonna use our rolling pin. We're just gonna roll this out, and actually the recipe says to fold it 10 to 15 times. So that's what we're going for, lots of folding, and then we're gonna take our cutter, cut it up, and your oven has to be nice and hot, like 475. So yeah, I can hardly wait to have one of these with some homemade strawberry jam. Let's get to it. Look at these biscuits. Look at the layers. Okay, I'm gonna get out some homemade jam and we're gonna test these out. Check out these biscuits. Yum, yum. Oh, yes. Oh, they're so warm inside. Okay, so I took some homemade strawberry jam out of my pantry, and if you want to know how I make strawberry jam, I have a video on it. And you should be making homemade strawberry jam because it is amazing. So, and I like a lot of jam, so let's just test this out. Yeah, look at the flakiness. It's from all that folding, and I'm convinced it's gonna help me like with biceps. It should be considered weightlifting or something, I don't know. This is amazing. You need to make these. Even if you don't have buttermilk, you're like, I'm gonna go to the store and get buttermilk. Do it. Yes. But can you imagine deciding so good. I want a homemade biscuit today. Oh, and there's some in my freezer. Oh my God, have I had that on my face for a while? Oh, whatever, just some days. You know what I'm saying? I can't be too upset. I have homemade biscuit and scratch made strawberry jam. Comment below. Have you made biscuits before? Oh, they're so good. Go forth. Make better. Make biscuits. This is amazing. I have no more words. I'm gonna shove another one of these in my mouth, so make sure you subscribe, share this with a friend. Sending you some love today. Take care, friends.